our disgusting boy named Juho Nam lives the life as a filthy temporary worker who spends his time slaving away at a local convenience store. He covers the afternoon shift 3 times a week for 5 hours at a stretch. While minimum wage only brings in about $50 a day, he still finds a sense of pride in his simple occupation. There are certainly better paying jobs with fewer hours available, but Juho has a very specific reason for remaining exactly where he is. That reason is a captivating woman named Ruri, who joined the staff just 2 months ago. Even though she is only 22 and just a year older than him, her presence completely derails his focus. She has a way of leaning over the counter to ask his opinion on new snacks that makes his heart race and his face turn a bright shade of red. When she catches him staring or spacing out, she playfully warns him that he will never find a girlfriend if he stays lost in his own world. Juho tries to maintain his dignity by claiming he has actually dated many people before, but Ruri just laughs and dismisses his stories as nothing more than a dream. Her vibrant personality and constant teasing leave him perpetually flustered behind the register. He finds himself caught between wanting to prove his experience and simply being happy to be in her company, while she grins at his awkwardness. As he finishes his shift and walks down the quiet hallways toward his apartment, his thoughts turn more realistic. He reflects on how all he has ever done is study hard and transition straight into working during college. The honest truth is that he doesn't have a girl in his life because there is simply no time in his busy schedule for a social life. He accepts this as his current reality while reaching for the door handle and entering his home. The moment the door creaks open, the quiet is shattered by very loud and sussy sounds echoing from the bedroom. Juho stands frozen for a moment as he witnesses a scene that has clearly become a recurring theme in his living situation. His roommate is quite busy with a guest, and the two of them seem completely unfazed by his sudden arrival. While the woman offers a cheerful greeting as if nothing unusual is happening, Juho can only offer a heavy sigh and wonder why he has to encounter this cardio site once again. He realizes he is the only one in the room who feels any sense of exhaustion or awkwardness as he watches them carry on with their evening. The frustration finally reaches a boiling point for Juho as he informs the couple that they need to finish their business and vacate the premises immediately. He even suggests they open a window on their way out to clear the air. These two are actually his college classmates who have made a habit of using his apartment as their cardio session spot simply because they are too broke to afford a proper private place. The pair consists of Bakha Choi and Chodan Min, and their complete lack of boundaries is starting to weigh heavily on his sanity. As Juho tries to recover his composure with a simple carton of milk, Chodan casually asks why he does not just join in on the fun with Bakha. The sheer absurdity of the question causes Juho to lose his grip entirely, leading to a very ungraceful fountain of milk spraying across the room. Chodan continues as if everything is perfectly normal, insisting that his partner is lovely and that Juho is more than welcome to participate in their cardio activities. Juho realizes he is trapped in a conversation with people who possess truly eccentric sensibilities, especially when they double down on the offer by claiming he is exactly their type. Bakha plays right along with the suggestion, wondering aloud if Juho finds her unattractive while she makes a very bold and sussy move toward him. Chodan even brings up seeing Juho in the gym locker room as a strange justification for why he would be a great addition to their group. This is the final straw for Juho, who feels his internal temperature rising to a boiling point. He eventually snaps and shouts at the top of his lungs for them to leave his home this very second. The quiet night air is filled with the sound of his outburst as he is finally left alone in the aftermath of their chaotic visit. Now alone, Juho gets down on his knees to clean up the spilled milk and the various tissues left behind by his guests. He acknowledges that they are generally nice people, but he cannot wrap his head around their very public and sussy relationship dynamics. He struggles to understand the logic of a couple who thrives on such strange and open displays of affection involving others. As he tosses a crumpled tissue into the bin, he feels a pang of self-pity, reflecting on the irony of being a perfectly normal single man while those with such odd habits are happily coupled up. Just as he is starting to settle into the quiet, the doorbell interrupts his thoughts, and he wonders who could possibly be visiting at such a late hour. He opens the door to find his longtime childhood friend, Juyeon Yo, who also happens to live in the apartment right next door. They have been close since their early school days, but the look on her face tells him that his timing is absolutely terrible. He realizes far too late that he is standing there in nothing but his underwear, holding a wet wad of tissues, while a suspicious puddle of white liquid sits prominently on the floor behind him. Juyeon points toward the mess with a silent look of deep judgment, leaving Juho to realize that he has absolutely no way to explain this scene without sounding like a complete disaster. Juyeon stares at the suspicious scene before her and immediately jumps to the most logical but entirely incorrect conclusion about how Juho spends his sussy time. She remarks that while he is free to enjoy whatever cardio videos he likes, he should really consider the fact that the walls are thin enough for her to hear everything from her own room. Juho frantically tries to explain that the situation is a massive misunderstanding and that things are not at all what they seem, but she simply offers a knowing smirk and dismisses his excuses as the typical lies of a man caught in the act. The situation takes a turn for the worse when she begins to playfully investigate the room by sniffing the air with a sussy grin. She claims that her nose can lead her to the exact spot where he engaged in his alleged cardio activities, and even suggests he owes her a drink if she manages to find it. Juho realizes, with a sinking heart, that the room actually does have a sussy scent because of the intense cardio session held by his classmates just moments before. He desperately tries to wave the air around to clear the evidence, but Yu-yeon is convinced she is on the right track. She eventually corners him with a look of deep judgment, wondering if his usual habits have finally reached a level of desperation that he can no longer control. Before he can find the words to properly defend his honor, she decides that a simple scolding is not enough for such a blatant display of indecency. She calls him a hopeless disgrace and delivers a sharp, stinging slap across his face that echoes through the apartment. Juho is left alone once again, nursing a bright red handprint on his cheek and wondering how his childhood friend can be so quick to resort to violence. As he sits on the floor with a cold drink, he reflects on the absurdity of his life and the duality of Ju-yeon. He acknowledges that she has a very cute face, but her aggressive personality makes him wonder who would ever be brave enough to date someone so unpredictable. His thoughts wander toward the concept of love and whether finding a partner would actually make his daily existence more satisfying, or if it would just add more chaos to his already complicated the world. This moment of deep reflection is suddenly shattered by the loud and aggressive buzzing of a massive hornet that has found its way into the room. Juho is gripped by a sudden panic and begins to flail his arms wildly to avoid being stung, leading to a very ungraceful slip on the remaining wet spots on the floor. He loses his balance entirely and goes flying toward the balcony door, crashing into it with enough force to send him sprawling amidst a pile of shattered glass and debris. As he sits up and tries to figure out how he survived such a disastrous fall, his eyes wander upward and land on a sight that leaves him completely frozen. Standing right in front of him is Ju-yeon, who looks just as shocked and mortified as he feels. She is caught in a state of extreme sussy state, wearing nothing but a thin white shirt and a pair of very colorful, strawberry-patterned cloth. Juho finds himself in a state of complete confusion as he stares at Ju-yeon, momentarily forgetting that he is the one who just came crashing through her balcony door. He wonders why she is standing there in such a sussy outfit, but the reality of the situation quickly sets in when she reminds him with a very angry expression that he is currently in her home. The tension in the air is thick as Juho tries to deflect the awkwardness by labeling her a disgrace for her choice of clothing. This attempt to shift the blame backfires spectacularly as Ju-yeon reaches for a heavy object with a look of pure determination. She informs him that she is the one who should be complaining before launching the projectile with enough force to send it flying through the air. The object hits Juho squarely in the forehead with a loud thud, causing his vision to swim as he feels a wave of dizziness wash over him. The world around him fades into a blur of colors before everything goes dark, and he slips into an unconscious daze. While he is out cold, his mind retreats into a very vivid and strange dream world where the rules of reality no longer apply. In this dream, Ju-yeon appears before him with a soft and apologetic expression, appearing much more gentle than she ever is in real life. She leans in close and offers a sincere apology for hurting him, even suggesting that he might want a taste of her in a way that makes his heart race even in his sleep. Just as the dream reaches a peak of absolute absurdity, a bright light breaks through the darkness. Juho wakes up with a start and realizes that he is lying in a bed that definitely does not belong to him. He looks around and sees Ju-yeon sitting nearby, now wearing a yellow cardigan over her white shirt and looking much more composed than before. She notices that he is finally awake and tells him to just relax, though she seems a bit worried about the state of his injury. Juho reaches up to touch his forehead and feels a sharp ache where the object struck him, and the memory of her throwing it comes rushing back. He attempts to glare at her for her violent behavior, but she maintains her ground by reminding him that his rude comments were the reason she lost her temper in the first place. They eventually agree to call their grievances even for the time being, as there are much larger problems to deal with in the room. Juho's eyes land on a massive bag of debris sitting near the balcony, and he realizes that his dramatic entrance has caused some serious structural damage. Ju-yeon explains that the bag contains what is left of the wall that used to separate their two balconies. They both stand up and walk toward the wreckage, looking out at the giant hole that now links their apartments together. The entire privacy barrier has been reduced to a pile of broken concrete and dust, leaving them with a very open and shared living space. Juho is gripped by a new sense of panic as he asks if she has managed to contact the landlord about the disaster. Ju-yeon confirms that she made the call while he was passed out. Ju-yeon manages to get the landlord on the phone and finds the woman relaxing under a palm tree on a tropical beach, somewhere far away. The landlord seems entirely unbothered by the news of a literal wall collapsing in her building and casually tells Ju-yeon not to worry about it because she will take care of the repairs whenever she eventually returns from her vacation. This leaves the two neighbors in a very awkward position as they realize they are now forced to live with a giant shared opening between their private spaces for the foreseeable future. Ju-yeon immediately tries to establish some boundaries by warning Juho that he better not even think about peeking into her room while the wall is gone. She admits with a blush that she usually prefers to wear nothing but a light shirt when she is at home, and her privacy is now at a very high risk. Juho tries to act cool by laughing off the idea and claiming that he wouldn't bother looking at her body even if someone paid him a large sum of money. This predictable insult results in yet another physical outburst from Ju-yeon, who delivers a sharp blow to his head as she reminds him that her patience for his rudeness is wearing thin. As Juho sits on the floor, nursing his latest injury, he thinks back to their school days and remembers how she was always as strong as a wild gorilla. He can't help but notice how much she has changed since they were kids, and he quietly admits to himself that she has actually grown up to be quite pretty in her own way. That night, his subconscious mind takes over again, and he finds himself trapped in another vivid dream involving Ju-yeon in a very compromising and sussy state. The dream is so intense that he wakes up feeling completely drained, and he heads to his shift at the convenience store looking like a total zombie. Ruri immediately notices his tired eyes and leans in to playfully whisper that he must have spent the whole night engaged in some very specific sussy activities instead of sleeping. Juho is startled by her sudden appearance and tries to explain himself, but he is interrupted when Ju-yeon walks through the front doors of the shop. He is stunned to see her on his professional turf, and they share an awkward moment of recognition that doesn't go unnoticed by his coworker. Ruri picks up on the strange tension instantly and begins to interrogate him with a very sussy stare once his neighbor leaves the counter. She wants to know if he has feelings for the pretty girl who just walked out, and Juho tries to brush it off as a simple childhood friendship that ended up at the same college by total coincidence. Ruri isn't convinced by his dismissive attitude and continues to poke fun at his obvious nervousness while leaning sussily over the counter. She mentions that he shouldn't be so modest because anyone can be curious about those kinds of things, and then she asks if he would like to see what she is wearing for her cardio outfit. Juho is completely blindsided by Ruri's bold invitation, his face turning a deep shade of crimson as he tries to process whether she is actually being serious. Ruri leans across the counter with a calculated and sussy grace, her movements intentional as she watches his heart rate climb and his composure crumble. He finds himself unable to look away, eventually admitting his curiosity with a faint and embarrassed affirmation that only serves to fuel her playful spirit. However, the heavy tension is broken instantly by a burst of loud and unapologetic laughter as Ruri reveals that she was merely playing with his emotions once again. Juho realizes, with a heavy heart, that he has fallen into yet another one of her carefully crafted traps, and he reflects on how easily he is swayed by her antics. He remembers all the previous occasions where she used her charms to trick him, such as the time she complained about the heat just to get a rise out of him, or the moment she pretended to drop a coin on the floor just to witness his awkward struggle for words. He feels like a complete idiot for believing that a woman as captivating as Ruri would ever be serious about such a sussy offer. To make matters even worse, she quickly captures his humiliated expression on her phone, adding another embarrassing photo to her growing collection while he tries to gather the scattered remains of his dignity. After Ruri eventually heads off to handle the inventory with a triumphant grin, Juho is left alone in the quiet aisles to reflect on his unfortunate streak of bad luck. His mind inevitably wanders back to the chaotic events of the previous night, as he is still unable to shake the image of Ju-yeon and the colorful strawberry pattern situation that started his current spiral of confusion. Just as he attempts to settle into the routine of his shift and clear his thoughts, Ruri reappears and tosses a small, light object in his direction without any warning. He catches it instinctively, but his breath hitches as he looks down to see a pair of delicate black cardio cloth resting in his palms, leaving him more shocked and flustered than he has ever been in his entire life. Ruri watches with a predatory grin as Juho stands frozen with the black cardio cloth in his hands, clearly enjoying every second of his utter confusion. She asks him to take a wild guess as to who the owner might be, but Juho can only gulp in silence as his face turns an even deeper shade of red. She casually mentions that the item is a gift to make up for her previous prank and tells him that he better take good care of it. Juho stares at the delicate fabric, wondering if this is a genuine gesture or if his coworker is currently executing the most elaborate psychological trick in the history of convenience store employment. He eventually convinces himself that she is likely just trying to bait him into another embarrassing reaction by giving him a brand new item from the store shelf. Once he finally finishes his tasks in the back, Juho steps out into the main shop, only to find a surprisingly hostile atmosphere at the front counter. Ruri and Juyun are locked in a silent and icy standoff that makes the entire room feel like a pressure cooker. Ruri is visibly fuming, her face contorted in a rare display of genuine anger as she stares down his neighbor. Juho wonders if Juyun was being a particularly rude customer or if there is some deeper tension he doesn't understand. Before a single word can be exchanged to clear the air, Juyun offers a final look of cold judgment and marches out of the store, leaving a very frustrated Ruri behind the register. Ruri immediately turns her interrogation toward Juho, wanting to know exactly how well he knows the woman who just left. Juho tries to keep things simple by explaining that they have been friends since they were kids and just happened to end up at the same college, but Ruri is clearly not satisfied with such a mundane answer. She remarks on how cool and composed Juyun seemed, which only seems to fuel her own competitive spirit. Without any warning, she grabs Juho by the arm and drags him back toward the storage room, ignoring his frantic inquiries about where they are going and why she is being so aggressive. The heavy door slams shut with a loud bang, leaving Juho trapped in the cramped space as his internal alarm bells begin to ring at maximum volume. Ruri stands close to him, her expression shifting back to a mischievous and sussy confidence as she brings up the black cardio cloth again. She asks him one last time to guess who they belong to, and when Juho desperately suggests that they must just be inventory from the store, she gives him a triumphant look. She reveals the shocking truth by confirming the items are indeed hers, and proceeds to provide an undeniable and very sussy proof of ownership that leaves Juho completely paralyzed with shock. She leans in, her eyes sparkling with a mix of sussiness, as she informs him that because he finally got the answer right, he has earned himself a very special prize. Then they started a cardio session. The atmosphere in the cramped storage room reaches a fever pitch when the sudden chime of the entrance bell sends Juho into a state of absolute terror. He realizes with a start that a customer has arrived and frantically insists that they need to leave their hiding spot immediately. Ruri remains completely unfazed by the potential for a scandal and tries to calm his nerves by suggesting that everything is fine. She leans in and tells him that any visitor will simply leave if they stay perfectly quiet, even going so far as to suggest they should continue their cardio session one more time. Juho is practically vibrating with anxiety as he argues that the situation is definitely not okay, but he finds himself paralyzed by her bold proximity and the sound of her sussy breathing. Just as Juho feels his heart might actually leap out of his chest, the loud click of the door handle signals the end of his piece and the likely end of his professional reputation. The door swings open to reveal a striking woman with long dark hair and glasses who radiates an aura of extreme authority. Juho realizes he is well and truly cooked as she peers into the room with a look of deep, silent judgment. Ruri quickly tries to regain her composure and adjust herself, but the newcomer's icy stare makes it clear that she is not fooled by their frantic attempt to look busy. The air in the store turns freezing as the two women lock eyes in a silent battle of wills that leaves Juho feeling like a spectator at a high-stakes duel. He attempts to offer a weak explanation about how they were simply organizing the stock, though his bright red face and trembling voice do nothing to support his claim. Ruri tries to assert some dominance by informing the stranger that the storage room is strictly for staff only and that she needs to leave. The mystery woman merely offers a mocking smirk and wonders aloud what the reaction would be if she actually belonged in the store as a member of the staff herself. This cryptic statement leaves both Juho and Ruri in a state of stunned confusion as they watch the woman walk out to the main counter with total confidence. The mystery is solved in the most stressful way possible when she casually takes a seat and reveals the devastating truth that she is the brand new manager of the convenience store. Juho can only stand there and gulp in silence as he reflects on the sheer bad luck of being caught in a sussy situation by his new boss on her very first day. The manager makes no effort to hide her disapproval as she surveys her new domain with a critical eye. She swipes a finger across the counter and pointedly remarks on how incredibly dirty the premises have become, leaving the implication of their storage room antics hanging heavily in the air. She turns her piercing gaze toward Juho and demands to know his name, causing him to nervously confirm his identity while praying for the floor to swallow him whole. After a helpful assistant whispers his full name into her ear, the manager stares him down and asks exactly when his shift is supposed to end. Juho weakly informs her that he is finished at 5 o'clock. The manager checks her phone and notes that it is already 5 minutes past 5, signaling that the workday is officially over for some. She gives Juho the green light to head home, but immediately turns her attention back to Ruri with a stern order to stay behind and scrub the place until it sparkles. Juho is completely taken aback by this sudden shift in authority and even tries to offer a helping hand to his coworker because he hates to see her struggle alone. However, Ruri stops him in his tracks with a firm hand and a cold look, insisting that he just get going while promising to explain the situation at a later time. The manager watches this awkward interaction with a smug sense of satisfaction as Juho finally beats a hasty retreat from the store.